Hello and welcome to Sim Strategy Gaming. I'm Sim. This episode will be about the first additional scenario for Railway Empire 2, Journey to the East. We find ourselves on the Balkans in the 1860s with a very hard mission to build a luxury railroad through the Transylvanian Alps, connecting Vienna to Constantinople. Looking at our mission objectives, first we have to set up a luxury train line between Vienna and Budapest. And we do it like this. It's best in order to get the most passengers to reduce the ticket price the most. But later on, to make this profitable, we will have to increase the ticket price perhaps to the max. Or else it would be better, I think, to just have ordinary passenger lines or mixed lines. One can add the dining car, but not the mail wagon. And as soon as one have done this,
Excellent! Not only our trains, but also our fares are exclusive, that only the creme de la creme can afford it. If you want more passengers, you can either lower the prices or provide for more residents.
now we need a lot more residents in order to make the luxury lines profitable. But in order to achieve the mission objectives fast, we can set it up simply and then let it run for a little while, and then we will have our mission objectives fulfilled. But we have started out with only one single line. We have not so much money to begin with in this mission, and we need to connect all the connection bonuses all the way to Budapest, and then also to Kecskemét. And in order to do this, there can only be one line. But then the connection bonuses will be coming in, and very soon we will be able to build a double line going back and forth. And then we can have on that line both a mixed train and a luxury train in order to achieve the mission objectives. Looking at our locomotives for this mission, we have now the fastest express train that we can use for the luxury lines. Being this one, this has very low tractive power, and for these mountainous regions, it might not be very well suited. Later on, we can aim for this better express train, which have much higher tractive power and can be suited for most purposes. I will use it for most. Is also the whale tank, which have higher tractive power but much slower speed, and is a much earlier train. We can look for the best freight train, very cheap one, very low maintenance requirement, low consumption, and good for many purposes and have a higher tractive power. But most of all, this train will be the primary train for this mission, used for many purposes.
Fantastic! This region is thriving thanks to our railroads. To get to Constantinople, a southern route would have to be chosen. But access to the Ottoman Empire is hardly possible at this point. We have no choice but to open up a northern route first. We will reach the Black Sea through the Carpathians, from where our passengers can then travel to Constantinople by barge. But first, we have to secure the steel and wood production to be able to build the routes at all.
Yes. So then we managed the first set of mission objectives, have a luxury train line, and then transport some passengers. Do that on the same line, and then to grow the Austria-Hungary region. We have been managed now to include all of Austria-Hungary, including Debrecen. I really aim to do that extra fast. I might have dropped out on some score because I pushed for having this line as fast as possible and to grow all the cities. And to have these very long lines might not be so clever. The game doesn't really do well with too long lists for 4 stops. If this becomes more than 10, 12, 15 stops, then it might occur unwanted things. So then we split this long line here in Budapest and add upon a warehouse so that there will be one set of trains coming from Budapest to Kecskemét and Debrecen, the Hungarian part, and then there will be an Austrian part here, Vienna, Pressburg, Budapest. And then the resources will be connected to extra lines, so they will not be part of the same system as the main lines, because there will be freight trains dedicated on this one, bringing in the goods to the warehouse, not the cows to the warehouse, they will only go to Vienna. And then there will be mixed lines here. And on that mixed line, I could also have put a couple of express trains, have a few luxury lines just going back and forth to give me some score. But if I now put express trains, faster trains than this Tafel whale tank on this line, it will be slowed down by the Tafel whale tank. It's the slowest train that sort of determines the speed of the entire line. Later on, when we get the better express train, we can have them both for mixed trains and luxury trains and passenger trains and even for freight.
Marvelous! These materials should be more than sufficient for building all the bridges and tunnels we'll need for our mountain route. Finally, contracts have been signed allowing us to purchase concessions in Wallachia and across the Danube, all the way to the Black Sea. The terminal stop for our first Oriental luxury rail line. Frustratingly, we have only been given permission to do so under the condition that we help grow these lands, same as we did with Austria-Hungary. And here I thought building tracks across the Carpathian Mountains would be our biggest problem.
So then we made for our second set of mission objectives a daunting task, building up Kolosvar in order to produce steels and then grow Sibiu. And the passenger line directly from Budapest to Sibiu without changing trains in a luxury line. We made that absolutely directly and pretty much only to satisfy the mission objectives, a long line here and then further on from Debrecen. I removed that later on and replaced that line because I thought it was too long with this very big Transylvanian circle here, which I made into a full 8 lanes so that there will be 8 separate lines going through every city, and then I can have one in each direction for every purpose, which I find interesting for this mission because there are this extra set of objective to have the luxury rail lines, and then I can use this to compare the results. And then we have the mixed lines here, and then some dedicated freight lines here with only the freight train. There are some very steep inclines somewhere, so then I thought that perhaps if I used some of these more powerful slow trains to pick up some of the goods, there will be less goods for the mixed trains and they will be faster uphill. Of course, for the passenger lines, they can be added the mail wagon and dining car, and then the luxury lines in one separate track. Might be a little too much to have all of these 8 lines, and mission objective wise it would perhaps have been smarter to push down into Wallachia, into Bulgaria, southern Romania, uh, faster, but I was a little bit afraid of running out on money and being stuck in this slow start when money are coming in very slow and you cannot do pretty much anything. We're making 500,000 a week now, and we're gonna make a lot more from having this nice big circle going round and around, never to be disturbed here in the middle of our map. Will soon be the heart of our railroad empire.
Industrialization cannot be stopped. The region is experiencing an economic upswing thanks to the expansion of the rail network. We passed an important milestone, and the lords and kings are quite impressed. I think we can dare to start the construction of a southern, even more impressive route. It will certainly not be easy, but that should not stop us. We are still operating on the territory of the empire, but in order for Serbia and the Ottoman Sultan to have no choice but to grant us free passage, we must leave a long-lasting impression.
Yes. So then we completed our third set of mission objectives to make grow Bucharest, and then to have a luxury line directly from Bucharest to Varna. That was sort of easy. And then further on grow the entire Wallachia region. And we can see how now we've done this. First of all, the line from Bucharest here to Varna, and also further on up to this hotel here at Ola, and then to Brasov. We removed that line later on as well, because there aren't enough passengers for luxury trains yet. But still, mission objective wise, we have to put up some line here between Varna and Bucharest. But then as soon as it has transported those 250 passengers, it might be better to have an ordinary mixed line there around here in this Transylvanian circle, which have experienced much growth as of late, the last year or so. Then it might become much more profitable to have a luxury line. But when the growing phase of the cities in the very beginning, it might not be so profitable. We can see now that the luxury trains are making the least of money, while the passenger trains, particularly with the mail, they're making a lot of money. But also the mixed lines are very good. Freight lines not so profitable, but they're still doing a very important job. We have the same system for Vienna, Pressburg, Bucharest, and also this extra line here, the Debrecen, Kecskemét, Budapest. There will be 4 different lanes, back and forth system instead of circular, but there will be room for 4 of these different types, and we can see how they are faring economically. There are no dedicated freight line on this because it is so flat, and then we don't need that particular. We have 2 mixed lines. Mixed lines being superior, I think, in many ways at least. Built on this extra little Vienna Pressburg line because there's so much traffic now, particularly with Pressburg growing enormously, already approaching 200,000 citizens. And then having these docking stations around that can pick up freight from other places and deliver it on to the systems, like here, going down to Hotel Cross in the middle, and then adding upon the capacity of the circle. That is the main thing for Transylvania, but also bringing in special goods, like there will be a carpet factory down here in Szeged, and that will need to have the dye, and then it moves into here and then to a warehouse being connected further on, so you can sort of cross the existing line there. in Sibiu we have now made for 3 stations. A very clever solution, I think, in many ways, that we can have some goods here and then a docking station in between that only brings in the wheat, and then another completely different system, another place, and then maybe the wheat should go to both stations, or maybe it should just go to one of the stations. Depends on if there are wheat existing on the other system from before. Not so many things existing here. This line is very short now, just going through Sibiu to Brasov. But later on, I will drag that all the way up here to Selnovitz, and perhaps through this wheat resource there. And that would make for confusion if this was connected already. So it might be a very good idea to use all of the 3 stations that one are allowed to have in a city. This line that we built to cross the mountains, that might very easily be coming to full. And then one might have to reroute some of these goods through through other sites. But for now, we built this hotel and warehouse in the middle that can deliver goods back and forth, and really utilize this path and make it grow in, say, Pitești, and then with Krainova, we are also having this system of 3 warehouses where goods can be distributed from one warehouse to the other, and also be added upon freely from the docking in the middle. Some of the goods going to back and forth, some of the goods being loaded on from the docking station to one of the systems or both of the systems. And then built for this separate circle here, repeating the success, I would say, from the Transylvanian circle, and to have 8 pull lines. Now, this would be too much now, and I realized that I could have made more mission points if I were less generous with building these systems, but we have a lot of money, and one builds this, and then later on we will have passengers coming from this region and further on down south, and then they will need to have extra capacity. So it's always good to build some extra, and then to make sure that one has enough capacity. It's all green here now, but one can see that this is becoming very full quite soon.
Very good. A little philanthropy has never hurt if you want to sway public opinion to your side. And with that, we are able to finally cross the border to Serbia. I hope you haven't had enough of the mountain panorama, because you will have to cross the Balkan Mountains to the east. We must also look into the new business opportunities in these new areas we claimed. I think importing some of the goods back into the empire might be a fruitful business.
So then we are made for another set of mission objectives to grease up the nobles of Austria-Hungary with nougat, and then to grow Novi Sad in Serbia. We now would have to build this extra circle here, repeating the same system, having 8 lanes around there. Might seem a lot now, but we can look at the circle that we made down here, and you can see that the trains are now growing a little bit colorful, at least over the mountains here. They'll be starting to becoming red and having their capacity filled. With Novi Sad, we bought up both the factories down here, and the nougat was in many ways the easy part. Bring in grapes, and then have a particularly extra dedicated line with honey coming down here. I think I should have bought up this honey resource and extra resources before I built the circle, but I'm really pushing for making a lot of money, and now we are making 3.5 million a week, and pretty much have as much money that we can throw on any problem that we are being challenged with. But we might be lagging a little bit behind with the mission objectives. We could have done more in order to buy up these industries instead of having that full capacity. But later on we will have the money coming to us, and that will pay off really well. Also built this nice extra extension up to Moldova, I think, Ukraine, all the way here. Had this line from Sibuyu, Brasov, and then made a further split line here. One going down to the southern parts again, to Brarila, and then one all the way to these nice mountainous regions up north here. And then coming to Zelnovitz. And then with these two separate systems, there will be two separate warehouses that can interchange in between. And then later on, there will be lots more industry, and then we will have more exchanges and desires. Here in Gebreben, we made for one of these hotel warehouse connections. Can be very clever in many ways. It shortened down the trip here, so one doesn't have to go to Zelnovitz in order to come here from the south, from Visus, to go to Chisinau. Another hotel here in Kurti. Didn't need warehouse there, so it's better to have the maintenance depots in many ways. It's safe, it's nice. And then Odessa connected here, which has several lines coming in, and then further on down to Varna, connecting it all the way. No mission objective points for making these extra routes in these additional areas, but it's nice to have it all developed, I think. In order to bring the Nougat around, we had to make sure that Nougat was, or now is only directed to the Austria-Hungary region and not being connected, say here, it now goes to Temesvar, to cut this off in order to achieve the mission objective to bring this only now to the Austria-Hungary region before we could bring it to everybody. And then it would be beneficial to have it here to Temesvar and to have this Nougat producing region. Might even put up one in Osijek as well to produce enough Nougat to bring it on to everybody. But then say with salt, we've now been lucky enough to have two salt resources. So then one is brought up here from the southern parts into Brasov, and then further on to Sibuyu and on to the Transylvanian circle. And then we have another salt resource here, Slovenia, I think, that takes care of this Serbian, Croatian circle, and then also the entire Austrian-Hungary region up north. So then to have these two resources take care of each one's half of the map, and not to interflict with each other, but they can go from system to system. See that this is the liner system, Vienna, Pressburg, Osijek, that includes the salt. And then there is this circle down here, the Serbian circle, which receives the salt through the Osijek warehouse. And then the salt is brought here into Pressburg to a double warehouse system, and then brought on to this Hungarian line here, and also supplying the Austrian line. And now Shirt is already inside the Serbian circle. It's again supplying Novi Sad, but it supplies so little. And then we wanted to have some of the the shirts coming down from Vienna brought in here. And this is okay as long as this supply doesn't fill up. But as soon as this gets filled, then they will try to fill up the cities on this line, and then at the same time these cities on this system might fill up the circular, and then we will have the circular factories filling up the liner cities on the lineary system, and the cities on the lineary system filling up the cities in the circular system, and that will make for a mess. And we can see now that there is a mess where it comes in back and forth. Easy to see with the lumber, since there was already a shirt factory in Osijek. But now this is a mess, but it's an okay mess as long as these ones are not filled up.
Besides the passenger business, the export of goods is also extremely lucrative. Soon we should have made it through Bulgaria to Constantinople. Unfortunately, I still have not received any word from the Sultan. Very good. We are now prepared to completely cross the Balkan Mountains. We still don't have permission to lay our tracks to Constantinople, but while you are pushing the expansion in southern Bulgaria, I will use my contacts and solve this problem. Oh, and something else. I have received a peculiar request. King Ferdinand I of Bulgaria wishes to use our train. He wishes to drive it, to be exact. I am hesitant, as I've heard of the king's awful driving style. I suppose we cannot simply turn him down. Besides, we might get something out of it.
So then we made for another set of mission objectives, delivered all the white nougat, and are now to develop the Bulgarian Sofia region. But first of all, we connected Belgrade here with an extra long, peculiar circle expanded upon this system that we already had, in order to include Zagreb here and make for this super fantastic long line going all the way up to Vienna, and then be having this set of 8 grid iron here going like this, and then further on down to Belgrade, where it also has an 8 lane, and then make for a smaller inner circle as well, going up to Pressburg, which also has an 8 lane, but it will be 2 different 4-lane systems, which all combines into a 8 lane, sort of a double circle here. In many ways a simple system, but it looks a bit confusing looking at it like this, but one can make for this extra special circles to add upon in some mountainous regions, and then to have these circles are in many ways beneficial. I would say one can have goods coming in both directions, and then the tracks are a bit the lines have a bit fewer stops, which is also good for gameplay, and not to have more than, at least not say 16, 20 here. That's already a bit much, but often these other longer lines will have even more stops. Just remember to put the hotels on in these crosses to cut down, so that not everybody necessarily have to take all the way around. Made for this special solution here, added 3 stations in the middle of nowhere, because it is so long from Novi Sad and Belgrade and all the way down to Nis Krajnova here, and then to have some extra in between, and to add upon, have these lines that split and then connect again, and to have hotels might be a little challenging finding out exactly where the hotels should be placed in order to make these routes for passengers as short as possible, and at least so that it would not be more than twice the air distance. Then nobody would go if there is too long between two stations. In Novi Sad, we made for a warehouse connection, where we can see that we have some wares here: meat, honey, plank, carpet, salt, and cement, that are now being added on to a mirroring warehouse, and then can be sent further on. If we now hold here, you can see how this is being redistributed from one system onto another system. Now it seems to go back and forth here, but this isn't a problem, I think. It goes back and forth to the same factory that produces it. And this will always have fulfilled demand, or else it will not ship out anything, because it fulfills its own demand first. So this is okay, but the game is a bit peculiar sometimes. But still, it's very important to figure out how to make goods jump from one system to another, and then to make this small system that adds upon to each other.
There are complaints from some of our passengers. What happened? Oh, apparently King Ferdinand has been speeding with one of our trains. Ah, well, as long as he is happy, he might put in a good word with the Sultan. It is settled. The Sultan is allowing us to finally complete the remainder of our express line to Constantinople. What an honor. An acquaintance of mine, the French journalist Henri Opper de Blowitz, wants to test our Orient Express line once it's finished. He will then write about his travels on our train in all the big newspapers.
So then, now we have grown the Sofia region, and then it was kind of easy to transport the luxury passengers without changing trains within the circle that we added upon here. Doing the same as we have done to all of this mission, adding immediately a full 8-lane, trying to figure out which way of utilizing the lanes that are the most profitable. It's not very profitable, at least with these luxury trains, because there are it's a few citizens here. But we can see now that they're becoming good growth, and more, so that in some time we can have payback from our luxury lines. But at least waiting with this until it has reached some size. Adding upon these extra resources through docking warehouses, and then to bring goods from one system to another. So what are we? In Pelven, I will be having grapes coming from one system to another. Here it's okay to have, this is one system, but this freight system here, freight only, it doesn't have any demand, so these grapes will never enter into this system and never fill up the warehouse here down in Plovdiv, as long as it is like this. But then if I said I have a warehouse here, then that would make for a horrible mess like this, and we can see now clearly that the grapes here in this circle is filling up in the other lower system, and that the lower system here is filling up the northern system, and that this will make for a mess. This will fill up the warehouses, and then no goods will be coming either way, and the city will suffer from this. In addition to developing the Bulgarian zone, we also had an additional opportunity to develop an Bosnian Croatian zone. Already started on Croatia with Zagreb, but then had opportunity to include Split and Sarajevo and build for an extra circle down here. Same system with Split, having one liner system going up to Zagreb here on the west, and then in the middle there will be Split Central, which is the Bosnian circle, and then an extra docking station, and then these wares can go from the docking stations onto whichever of these systems as needed. Same with Sarajevo, only there's not a docking station, there's actually 3 full stations. The centermost coming from Osijek and from Zagreb. These up here not being connected. I later on am going to split this into 3 in order not to have any confusion, as I sometimes want to put things from this system onto either of these lines. But then to have this Zagreb line going down here, and then to Sarajevo, and then also with Osijek, and then further on we can bring it down into Greece.
De Blowitz is simply in love with our luxury train. He goes into great detail about our beautiful tableware and sophisticated cuisine. After his report is published, the masses are going to flock to us and want to board our trains. It is as though every little town our Orient Express touches, they grow into bustling cities. And yes, I decided to rename our train to Orient Express. That sounds way better than Express d'Orient. People across the globe will know its name and associate it with exotic lands, comfortable beds, fast speeds, and fine dining. I could not have done it without your help, my friend. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Next up, an express line between France and Russia. But I suppose I will save that one for another time.
So then we made it, a little more than 6 years into the game. It was really a difficult mission. Only made it to director. I perhaps could have pushed this a little bit harder and not made so much money and rather focused on the mission objectives. But I noticed that there are very few people on the high score list, so that this must be a very hard mission, not only for me. So let's see how we did this. First of all, looking at our mission objectives, which as of late have been kind of easy, but this last part, growing Constantinople into 120,000, that's a sizable city. And to double the inhabitants from 60,000 to 120. And also make sure that it delivers the furniture. It's not only a question of producing the furnitures and having them delivered. Constantinople need to have demand for the furnitures. And then it only demands 1 a week. So that will take 40 weeks. And one have to be certain that to grow Constantinople as soon as possible, and then to have these furnitures delivered right away. And also with the luxury line. But then first have a look at how we did this with the furnitures, and then to have this going here from Varna and making sure that there are trains waiting here at Varna station, even though they're blocking the rest of the traffic just a little bit, but they're still blocking, and then having that waiting, and then particularly as soon as there becomes demand in Constantinople, that train will rush down here and then deliver it. And otherwise, to have Constantinople really connected into everything, having one dedicated passenger freight line down here in the south, going through Korlu and Constantinople, but also to have one long line coming up here to Varna, picking up the furnitures here, and further on to Odessa, adding upon all the extra resources here. This resource in the dye resource here had some problems because it only delivers to this warehouse here, and then being further on delivered because there wasn't any stations left in Constantinople. Everything is pulled here. It is difficult with this at the edge of the map cities because it's very hard to go around, and then they soon be filled this because all of them, all the stations are end stations. And then we would have one line going from Constantinople, Korlu, and all the way to Thessaloniki, and then further on into the Greek zone, and also one set up here, and all of these being 8-lane systems up to Erdin, Plovdiv, Sofia, and having all of the different set of trains onto them, testing out the luxury trains, which I don't find that fantastically lucrative for making money, but still it's fun. In Greece, made for this system here, having lines coming, one set from Bulgaria all the way from Sofia up to Skopje, and then one from Constantinople down to Thessaloniki, and then up again from Thessaloniki into Skopje, and then turning Skopje into this transit station with 3 stations, and then being able to put goods onto either one. You can see that with say lumber. Lumber is within the city already, and then it comes from several places, and one can think that it might be interflecting or sending from one system to each other. But then lumber is only present at the innermost of these warehouses, and that makes it so that it doesn't bounce onto the other systems that already contains lumber, only through the one that doesn't. The lumber coming up here from the south, and then coming in to this system, and then goes back up to the other line here, all the way like this, and then being brought into Thessaloniki. Some of these lines are very long and crooked and weird, and one does make, of course, much less money from these long hauls. But then again, this is the map. This is extra hard. We have bought an enormous amount of industries. As soon as everything is connected, one can really start buying industries and then using warehouses and flow of goods for many other purposes than simply this basic goods coming from all over. This is not needed for the mission objectives, but still it's nice to have to play around with the system and to see how one can develop an area. But down here with Constantinople, one really needed to have all of these goods being brought in, to find clever ways to keep Constantinople always satisfied and make sure that it is growing fast. And then when it has reached over 120,000, it has a lot of demand, huge demands, and even though it gets a little bit, it runs out in a very short time. You see, now we have some problem with the cement, but otherwise there are coming in good, because we buy up these industries close by now that we have good money. 10 millions a week, then we can buy anything we want. So if we missed out on anything earlier that used to be less expensive, it doesn't matter so much now, because even if things are expensive, we can still buy them easily. We can see now that even with our elaborate 8-lane system, things are still clogging up, and the reason for cement troubles, say, down in Constantinople, is that even though we have good connection lines for this cement over here, it becomes too full, and it used to go through this this system in the middle here as well, but then now I removed the warehouse here because there wasn't any point in trying to put more traffic over the mountains. It has to go around on the little bit less full rails on another path. Well, but I guess that pretty much sums it all up. One can feel free to like and subscribe, leave some comments, and I hope to see you next time, and goodbye.